Hey there, YouTube land Vanguard fighters all across the world. This here's Royal Paladin 813 coming to you live from Vanguard Central in Florida, and we're here for another episode of Deck Profiles. What we're doing today is we're going to be doing ta-da! Nova Grapplers, starting off with my starting Vanguard being Blaujunger. Grade 0, 5k. Whenever Blau Panzer's writ on him, you grab Blau Kluger from your deck, add it to your hand. It's always good because when you ride the grade 1, and of course when starting hand comes into play, it counts as a grade 1 and a 2 in your hand for just one card. It's great card economy. Then the only thing you have to pray for is a grade 3, and then you have a very balanced hand to start the game. After him comes my stand triggers. 4 copies of Battle Riser. He's great because not only can he boost and be a 6,000 grade 0, he can go back in the deck so that way I can hit more stand triggers and thus get more attacks. And rounding out my stand triggers is 2 copies of Grapple Mania. Basically, he's a 4k booster, but whenever his attack hits and he boosts a unit, a Nova Grappler unit should I say, you can unflip a damage or return it to your deck. I have effects in this deck that will allow me to take advantage of that. Draw triggers, I have 4 copies of 3 minutes. Just your generic 5k draw card, 5k booster. Heal triggers we have, the only option being Ring Girl, Clara. And then for the last 2 triggers in the deck, I have Flying Battleship Prometheus. Now, normally, Nova Grapplers just want straight stand triggers, get as many attacks as you can. However, because of later cards in this deck, these will come into play, and I'll explain a little later. So now getting grade 0s out of the way. Moving on to grade 1s, we're starting off with 4 copies of Blau Panzer. As I've explained earlier in this video, he counts as a grade 1 and a 2 in your starting hand, thus making opening hands a lot easier. In the 8 times that I've done it, and I've shuffled it in, I've hit it 8 times, so I've gotten a lot of consistency out of it, and I get good opening hands. Next we have 4 copies of Death Army Guy. This guy's awesome because not only is he a 7k grade 1 booster, he stands whenever your Vanguard drive checks a grade 3, so basically it allows you to get a lot of attacks off and just deal ridiculous amounts of damage in the later stages of the game. And now for my tech choices, I have 2 copies of Dancing Wolf. Dancing Wolf instead of Tough Boy is a great decision because whenever you hit a stand trigger, he's not only going to get a plus 5k, but every time he stands in the battle phase, he gets plus 3,000 attack. So he's a 10k restands on multiple attacks, so he's great. And to round out my grade 1s, I have 3 copies of Twin Blader. Now normally the tech is 4 perfect defenders, but however, I feel 3 is the right amount because not only is this deck willing to draw into everything at once, but there's going to be a lot of times where you're not going to have a lot of dead cards. A lot of your cards are going to be live. So 3 is just the perfect balance for this deck. And this deck really does teeter, in balance. So that's my grade 1s. Moving on to grade 2s, we have starting 3 copies of Blau Kluger. And what makes the reason I'm only running 3 as opposed to 4 is because the grade 1 will search it out. And so you don't need to, hope to draw it as much because your grade 1 is going to search it. And having that kind of utility in your deck is just amazing. Next we'll have 2 copies of King of Sword. These are basically just to apply pressure, and they're just good 10k attackers. To be honest, Nova Grapplers don't have a lot of options when it comes to the grade 2s. They're a little sparse. Everything is in their grade 1s and their grade 3s. Moving on, we have 2 Magician Girl Kiraras. This is where damage on flipping becomes really important because the more these guys hit, the more cards I'm going to draw in my hand. And the more cards in my hand is going to make the late stages of the game a lot easier. So basically, I want to unflip as much damage as humanely possible. Of course, going soon as turn 2 with Blau Panzer because he's a damage unflipper. And of course, Grapple Mania because it will help speed up the unflipping damage so I can draw multiple cards over the course of the game. And then I have 4 copies of Death Army Lady. And now Death Army Lady is going to help keep pressure throughout the entire game. And she has kind of a big target on her head because just like Death Army Guy, whenever you drive check a grade 3, she restands. So when you've got 2 of these girls and 2 of those guys, whenever you hit a grade 3, it's like you have 2 brand new 16k attacks. It's just that ridiculous. And plus, a lot of people, it's one of those unexpected moves. It's like, oh, snap. I'm now getting hit with 5 attacks. Great. Alright, now moving on to grade 3s. Starting out our grade 3 line is going to be Sternblau Kluger. This guy. 10k, of course, whenever he's in the soul, Blau Kluger still gains 1,000. But what makes his effect great is in the Vanguard circle, you counterblast 2, chuck 2 cards. Whenever he hits a Vanguard, you pay the cost. When you do, you stand everything in his column, and he loses Twin Drive. This is where all those nifty cards are going to come in handy, because now that you've drawn all these cards in the late stages of the game, now you just go ahead and just keep getting multiple attacks. And the more chances that you'll have to drive grade 3s, so you'll just ramp and ramp and ramp attacks, potentially making it up to a total of about 7 or 8 attacks in one turn, on your last turn of the game. Tech choices: I have 2 copies of Armored Fairy Shabila. Basically, what I like about her is in the Vanguard or Rearguard, you can Soul Blast 3 to draw a card. Soul in this deck is extremely negligible, because you really don't care how much of a soul you have. It's basically a resource to draw extra cards. So just like Kirara, she's just going to draw you more cards and get you more advantage. Now we also have 2 copies of Mr. Invincible. He's great for 2 functions of the deck. 1, he allows me to keep my soul strong by soul charging every turn, thus fueling Shabila. Next, he's going to help fuel this guy we discussed earlier, Kirara, by unflipping damage. So it allows me to have a consistent card draw engine. And your last 2 cards are going to be 2 copies of Asura Kaiser. This guy is nasty because every time you drive check a grade 3, stands up a unit. So it allows for multiple attacks and gets you big damage in the late stages of the game. And that's basically what I have for my deck right now. You usually have a good chance to get Royal Paladins. Kagros, you have to be careful because they do get rid of Rearguard, so you have to be careful and draw your best stuff. It's basically just whoever has the best hand wins. Narakami, you have a really bad matchup because they keep attacking they keep applying pressure to your interceptors and your rear guards, so you have to be careful with that one. The mirror match on Nova Grapplers, it's whoever has the better build wins. Gold Paladins, Garmor, it's really, it's about a 50-50. Spectral Duke is not in your advantage because it'll get multiple attacks, and by the time you're done guarding, it'll just restand. And Bunny, you have a good matchup against because they don't care about your rear guards, but however, you care about theirs. Dark Irregulars, you don't care. Pale Moons, you don't care. You have the best matchup in the world against them. Well, anyways, thank you for listening to me ramble on about this beautiful Nova Grapplers deck. And you can rate, comment, subscribe, and also check out our other videos for deck profiles and other videos that we do. So, once again, like, comment, subscribe. Good night.